So President Biden taking the oath of office dealt a major blow to QAnon, the conspiracy theory. Believers of the outlandish theory were waiting for President Trump to enact a plan where members of a so-called satanic pedophilia ring in the government and in the entertainment industry would be rounded up, arrested, and possibly even executed. That obviously did not happen, causing some QAnon believers to wonder whether they'd been duped. Let me read some of the comments that poured into a Q message board, okay? Anyone else feeling beyond let down right now? This is pure hell I'm going through. It honestly feels like we were sold out by Trump. I feel robbed, filled with grief and anger. In the time we needed Trump and Q the most, they both shut up and left. So joining me now, CNN business reporter Donnie O'Sullivan and Chloe Colliver, the head of the digital policy and strategy for the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. It's amazing to listen, to watch, and to hear some of these comments. Thank you both for joining. So, Donnie, Joe Biden is president. The storm never came. Now there's a reckoning happening on the Q message boards. What are you learning?
Yeah, Don, I mean, it was incredible. Even up until right before Biden was inaugurated, a lot of QAnon followers still believed that Trump was going to implement martial law and was going to use the military to stop Biden from being sworn in. And in the early hours of Inauguration Day morning, we were out doing live overnight coverage, and we met a Trump supporter who was streaming live on YouTube, and he believed that conspiracy theory. He believed that Biden was not going to be sworn in, and we caught up with him after yesterday afternoon, after Biden became president. Have a listen.
Do you feel like you've been duped, that you've been tricked, that you've been fooled in some way here?
Actually, no. The way I felt was when I saw, I was waiting up until a minute that he said, "I, Joe Biden." Like when I'm watching him walk up, I'm thinking to myself, my life's about to completely change because I've been saying I'm either a conspiracy theorist or I'm a prophet.
Do you think maybe the way you were wrong about Joe Biden being not sworn in, you might be wrong about the whole election rigging thing?
No, I'm convinced that the election was a fraud.
And so that's the issue there, Don, right? I mean, he can see that he was duped by one conspiracy theory, but he insists on continuing to believe the stop the steal, the election rigging conspiracy. And also he believes, by the way, that it wasn't Trump supporters who were responsible for the violent insurrection 2 weeks ago, that it was in some way left-wing activists.
Well, he said he was going to say either he's a conspiracy theorist or a prophet. I'm not sure which conclusion he came to. Did he ever tell you?
He was very confused yesterday.
Yeah, I'm sure. Chloe, this is this an opportunity to bring some of these people back into the light when truth may be dawning on them? How do you do that if that's possible?
I mean, we can only hope that there is an opportunity for that. As Donnie mentioned, it's a pretty chaotic landscape in terms of reactions to this in the QAnon community writ large. And inside that group that is confused, disappointed, angry, I think we're going to have to watch for two different reactions. And one of them is what you mentioned, which is people who maybe have a way to potentially exit from this conspiracy theory movement. That will require enormous patience, a lot of work from friends and family, probably for those who have friends and family still around them, to have kind of long, careful conversations, non-judgmental conversations to try and help draw them out of the world they live in. Part of the problem with that is that these kind of movements aren't just ideologies, they also become the social structure for these people. So by moving out or exiting, they lose all of that as well. And it can be a difficult and challenging process. But the other thing we have to worry about is that a lot of those people who are angry or disillusioned may turn even more extreme. And there are huge risks of radicalization to extremism, for example, not just conspiracy beliefs. Among these communities, we've seen active recruitment in white supremacist channels, in accelerationist channels, militia channels, to try and target MAGA types and QAnon types who've been knocked off major platforms and are now in spaces that are much more connected to these more extreme channels.
So let me ask you, some of these followers still are refusing to see that they have even been conned. They're posting things like this, and I'm going to quote here. What would be the point of giving up right now? I agree. I'm keeping the faith. Stop crying into your popcorn and keep fighting for the truth. This is not the end. And some even threatening violence. The only fighting that matters from here on out is done with a gun. What happens to these people? Is there a real chance that they can resort to violence, Chloe?
Sadly, I think there is a real chance of that. We're facing a very real domestic terror threat from here on in the US that we need to get ahead of, both in terms of research, policy, law enforcement. The overlap between QAnon and extremism is a fragile and delicate one, and it's not fair to say that that's an exact match. But when we've seen these kind of channels from extremist groups and terrorist-related groups actively trying to reach out to potentially disillusioned QAnon audiences, that does pose a real risk of increasing the audience for, say, the Proud Boys, accelerationist groups who seek to do violence against government or against civilians. So it's definitely something that we're going to have to watch out for very seriously.
Donnie, let's talk about Ron Watkins. He's one of the most prominent QAnon-linked figures, and he wrote this online. He said, "We need to keep our chins up and go back to our lives as best as we are able. We have a president sworn in, and it is our responsibility as citizens to respect the Constitution, regardless of whether or not we agree with the specifics or details. Go back to their lives, respect the Constitution." What has the reaction been, Donnie? Because these are the people who believe the wildest things. These are the true believers.
Yeah, that's a lot of gaslighting there from Ron Watkins, the guy who has been pushing absolute nonsense, especially since Election Day, about the election being rigged. Look, President Trump has left this town, but a lot of things have not changed, right? There's a lot of people out there who want to believe all of this stuff still. There's still a lot of, Facebook is still essentially a cesspool of misinformation. There's that whole right-wing ecosystem of Trump-supporting media, the OANs, the Newsmaxes, and certain elements of Fox News. So, we may have a new administration, but this problem is going to stay. And I do fear that, those few QAnon supporters, followers that we're seeing who realize they have been duped and might see the light, they may be just the minority.
Wow. Donnie, Chloe, always fascinating to talk to both of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, everyone. Our coverage continues.